Hello, so in today's video, I'm going to talk about going from LPN to RN to nurse practitioner student and my journey to get there. A lot of people ask me why I went into nursing, how I got into nurse practitioner school, or just a lot of different questions that I get from people that want to know more about nursing and more about my progression through the ranks, so to speak. But so it started off many moons ago. I won't say how long ago, but I started off in Lpn school actually. And Lpn school, it was a year long, and we went just about Monday through Friday. I mean, it was like a 9 to 5. Some semesters or some quarters it was on the quarter system. We went 3 days a week, and then some we went 4 or 5 days a week. Or sometimes you would have a class like say Monday and Tuesday, and you'd have clinicals Wednesday and Thursday, about 700 I think clinical hours. And those clinical hours varied from nursing homes to assisted, well, I don't think I did assisted living, but nursing homes, in the hospital, in the ER, med surge, a lot of different settings. And actually, when I became an LPN, LPNs could do a lot more in the state I live in than a lot of other states, or it just depended on how far away from the city you got as well. If you went more rural, that word rural, if you went more rural, you could do more. There was one point when I first became an LPN where you could still, it's always two nurses to hang blood, but you could hang blood. You could give, I gave meds via IV. You hear in a lot of programs, like actually when I went to my RN program, you hear a lot of people say, a lot of the professors even, oh, LPNs can't do this, they can't do that. And I'm looking like, I did that. So it's really dependent on your state, and it's dependent on the facility, how much liability and how much the facility is comfortable with you doing. So then from there, there's several options. You can go. You can get your ADN, which is your Associates in Nursing, your RN. You can go that route. Most people that I know that went from LPN to RN went that route. Went the ADN, the Associate. Or you can go LPN. You can go to BSN. I know a few people, it is possible to do that. It's easier to go from LPN to ADN, and then you have to go back again and go and get your BSN. And people want to always know the difference. Well, the major difference that I've seen, at least in my state and where I live, is with the associate versus the bachelor's degree. Bachelor's degree, you're going to find more management opportunities. And there are hospitals that want, I think it's called magnet status, where they have a certain percentage of RNs, or all RNs are BSN or higher. Or they will not hire you if you have an associate. That all depends on supply and demand. It's kind of like, it goes back to being an LPN. A lot of times LPNs were doing more because they didn't have RNs to fill some of the roles. So you had an LPN working on a med surg floor, or working in an ER, doing a lot more. I even saw where LPNs, early on when I first started, before they changed a lot of the rules, were getting pulled and having to cover in the ICU zone. Very rare, didn't happen a lot, but it did happen. And it's just all that boils down to a shortage. But anyway, so those are the major differences between an associate and BSN. So my route, I went and I got a BSN instead. I skipped the ADM. Applied to a program that had hundreds of applicants. I think for 40 or 60 slots. I forgot how many hundreds they had. I didn't get accepted right away. I think I was put on, I don't know if I was put on a wait list for that one. And then I applied to an LPN to BSN program. There's only one I know of, or at least at that time, where you could do it online. Because I was like, oh man, I really need to do one online. because I have to work. I have to pay bills and things. So I found one online and I got put on a wait list because, again, a lot of applicants. They said there were like 800 applicants. They had 100 spots or something. It was something crazy. So I got put on a wait list, and they said I would get into the next class, but by the time the next class rolled around, I decided, look, there's a BSN program in my area that I talked to them. I got into it and everything, but then I said, well, what about my LPN classes? Do they count? Nope, LPN classes don't count. A lot of people think, well, why in the heck would you do? You're going to have to repeat a bunch of stuff. You're going to have to basically start over. But I said, well, I would rather do that because by the time I go through this program, I will actually be done sooner or around the same time if I waited on the other program, the wait list for the other program. I was just ready to get started. But then the major issue with this was I had to do the classes in person. And I had to do clinicals, a lot more clinicals, I think, than if I would have went and got my ADN or went LPN to BSN, because I had to do things like fundamentals. Fundamentals was essentially like how to be a CNA, which in my LPN program, I already learned how to do that. We had to do a PCT/CNA course and get certified as a patient care tech or CNA first before the program even started. It was part of the prereqs. So that was a little bit frustrating to have to retake the classes. The caveat, the good thing was, and not to sound like, oh, I'm so smart, I could just show up and pass the test. Most of the tests, though, in my BSN program, other than a couple of classes, I could show up for the most part and pass. Now, I'm not saying get straight A's, but I'm saying I could pass them with my previous nursing knowledge. In order to get A's, I did have to study a little bit, but and then the classes that I really couldn't just show up were peds. I never ever worked in peds. OB/GYN. I am not many types of nursing that I've done, but I am not an OB nurse at all. So that one was very, very tough for me. And then we took a critical care nursing course, and there was nothing that was like new per se, but it was a lot more. It was more in depth than when you go into an LPN school, and a lot of that stuff I hadn't worked. I was working, I think, at the time in hospice, so I hadn't worked around a lot of those things in the hospital in several years. So anyway, so I got into the BSN program, went through that. It was another, I think, like 700 hours of clinicals. But I'd like to say I learned a lot. I tried to always be open-minded, try to learn new things and go through that. But yeah, the other thing about going LPN to ADN or to even BSN is they don't really look at, I mean, they kind of look at it, but they don't really look at your LPN Gpa, or at least where I applied. My LPN Gpa was 3.7. However, my prerequisites to get into the associate's program, you had to take certain classes, right? And I'm terrible in the maths. As you know, in some of my previous videos, I talked about I'm terrible in the maths. So I mostly got C equals degree in math for me. So my GPA wasn't as high on the prerequisite side. So that was another factor. But anyway, got through it, got my BSN, applied to my master's program, and got accepted. And I'm trying to think, my BSN GPA was like 3.3 or 3.4. I mean, it wasn't like exceptionally high. Like I said, I was like, well, hell, I can show up and pass. Plus, I was working full time, military, so that was fine with me. So anyway, did that, and now I'm in a master's program. And then probably what I'll do in the next video, is I'll describe the difference between a BSN program, like as far as the amount of work, and MSN program, the amount of work. But anyway, stay tuned. Tell me what type of videos you would like to see. what type of content you would like to see me put out. And please like, subscribe, all those things YouTubers tell you to do. And y'all have a great day. Stay safe in this pandemic.